everything else goes away. I think I've got all my zoomers in here. Yep. Okay, so problem number 1. Notice what the directions are asking of you here. It feels like they're asking a lot. It says factor each one of these and find all the zeros. The good news is, though, the factors and the zeros are so closely linked together that once you do one, the other one kind of falls into place, okay? So it gives us one factor to start with. Our first mission is to figure out what the other factors are. I need to divide this out of this polynomial to find like what's left over. So that's where synthetic division is going to come in. If my factor is x plus 5, what number am I using to do my division with? Negative 5. You use the root that would go along with that factor. So I'm going to put a negative 5 here. And then I'm going to go 1, 9, 23, and 15. We haven't run into this yet, but kind of like when we did long division, when you're doing synthetic division, if there's any term that's missing, make sure to put a 0 in its place. So if this had just been x cubed plus 9x squared plus 15, you would put a 0 in the x spot. Okay? And then draw your line. Drag down the 1. Negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. And then I add together. 9 and negative 5 make 4. Negative 5 times 4 is negative 20. And 23 plus negative 20 is 3. And then negative 5 times 3 is negative 15, which gives us a 0 at the end. And all of these should work out with a 0 at the end because we know this thing is a factor, which means it divides in evenly. Okay, so what does that 1, 4, and 3 mean to me? Okay, so those are like the coefficients on my new polynomial. So what I know now is this polynomial could be written as x plus 5 times, and then this would be like 1x squared plus 4x plus 3. Okay. So the direction says factor, well, factor completely is kind of implied here. We need to factor it as far as we can go. So this helped me get it to the point where it's a trinomial. Can we factor this thing farther? And this one should be an easy one to factor, right? This one I'm just looking at, this is x and x. And I need numbers now that do what and what? Okay, multiply to 3, add to 4. What are they? Yep, x plus 3 and x plus 1. And then I'm also going to bring down my x plus 5 that it gave me at the beginning. So this right here is the factored version of my polynomial. I just factored this thing. Sorry, that's a little low, isn't it? Okay, so that was kind of step 1. Those were finding my factors. Now I need the zeros. But the good news is every factor gives you a 0. So if x plus 5 is a factor, what's one of your zeros? Yep, we already talked about that one, right? X equals negative 5. That's it. Yep. If x plus 3 is a factor, then x equals negative 3 would be a root or a 0. And if x plus 1 is a factor, then x equals negative 1 would also be a root. So these things here are your zeros / factors. Okay, Kiana?
Could you plug that equation into Desmos?
Okay.
Them and then just flip them over to factor them?
Yeah, great question. So with this assignment, I don't think I want you just going straight to Desmos because I want you to do the synthetic division piece of it for sure. But what I'm about to show you is another option. So that kind of goes along with what you were saying. So when we got to this point, x plus 5, this factoring was not difficult. Or at least it shouldn't have been. That's why I made you do all of that factoring, by the way. Like so much of it over and over and over again. It's because I knew this was coming and I wanted you to be in a headspace where like factoring would come quickly to you. Okay? Because doing this factoring should be quick and easy and it should be a way that you could get your answers without even looking at a calculator. But your other option would be to take that thing that you came up with and do quadratic formula on it. So we could go in our calculator, do the program, quadratic formula, and then I'm using the 1, the 4, and the 3 here. So A is 1, B is 4, C is 3. You'll notice that it spits out the negative 1 and negative 3 as roots for me. So I could have started by finding these two answers, right? And then, like Hannah was saying, you could take those roots and turn them around into factors. So if you didn't want to do that factoring step, you could have found the roots from quadratic formula and then turned the roots into the factors. Does that make sense? So yeah, there's a lot of ways around this. And then yes, in general, if I had just handed you this thing and said, hey, find the roots, you could have just plugged it into Desmos even and just saw where the roots were. Okay? And the roots turn into the factors. So lots of workarounds here. Okay? If the factoring is easy, I usually prefer the factoring because I don't even have to use a calculator then. I can just say, oh, I know this is +3 and +1, so there are my roots. If the factoring is harder, it might be quicker for me to go to the quadratic formula. So I would kind of suggest that you try both ways. Maybe do some of the problems one way and some of the problems the other, just to get kind of used to both. And then you could use something like Desmos to verify that your answer is correct. Okay, so we did number 1 together. The other 5 problems, 3, 5, 9, 13, and 17, I'd like you to try on your own. And then, like I said, probably once you've practiced this a little and we can regroup and talk about it, I might give you a few more to do to practice for your quiz. Okay, Carter?
For number 3, do we have to take a GCF for that one or no?
I think what's going to happen with that one is, because when you do the division, you're going to get an x cubed instead of an x squared, right?
Yeah.
But then you don't have a constant at the end, so yes, you should be able to pull an x out of everything. So your factored version is going to be something like x times, and then you'll have a quadratic here.
Okay.
Really what that's going to do is that's going to make one of your roots over here be like a 0. So it'll be like x equals 0. So yeah, good observation on that one. That one might be a little tricky. Okay? Clear on what you're supposed to do?
Yeah.
Okay, carry on. You guys who